My name's Gavin Blair. Some of you may know that. I am one of the guys who created a TV show called ReBoot.
Woo! Oh, there he is.
And this man here is Jim Sue, who worked on ReBoot. He's also the guy... No mics. No mics. It's going to be... And we got a rock band next up.
You have to raise the voice for
Jim, introduce yourself.
I'm Jim Sue, and I worked on season 4. And I was honored to work on season 4 with Gavin. I worked 4 years at Mainframe, and I'm also the producer of The Art of ReBoot.
Yes, so you must, if you don't have it already, you must go to Jim's booth and buy The Art of ReBoot.
Yeah, it's on sale for 20 bucks. Where's our microphone?
No, there were no mics.
What about the other panel?
There are no mics. No.
Okay, so I think we're gonna...
The other panel was further away from the rock band, though.
Okay, guys. So how are we gonna do this?
I don't know. I guess.
Field questions?
I don't really have a plan for this. This is my third con. It's my second con in Canada. It's my first con in Calgary. It's my first con in a Canadian city that also knows what playoff hockey is. Toronto, not so much.
To that.
Yeah.
We're not in the playoffs though. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Questions. Yeah. Basically, we'll just do a question format and see where it goes.
She was asking.
Are you using the same art style?
The question was for the new movie that's going to be done.
Well, that's a good starting point. I know there are a lot of people out there who want questions answered about what the future of ReBoot and the ReBoot revival and things like this. I just want to say right here, right now, that I am not in any way involved with the ReBoot revival at this time. The rights to the show belong to Rainmaker, the company that used to be Mainframe, and so it's up to them to develop and continue the show in any way they see fit. And at this time, they haven't contacted any of either myself or Ian or Phil, any of the creators of the show. So we're not actually involved in the revival or the webcomic or anything like that. So I can't really. I have no knowledge of such things, so I can't really answer questions like that. I'm very sorry, I can't really answer questions like that.
Alright, so I had a question from Burnout the Hedgehog wondering, how was the rest of the cast off the set, and was Michael Donovan as knowing as character Mike the TV?
Michael does
repeat the questions.
Yes, the question was, what are the cast like when they're not in front of the microphone?
Yeah.
And is Mike the TV, is Mike Donovan, the guy who played Mike the TV, as annoying in person? And the quick answer to that one is no, he's not. He's a really nice guy. Mike's a lovely guy. I mean, we use Mike not just for voices, not just for Mike, he was Fong as well, and Cecil. So that's 2 annoying characters out of 3. But no, he's an absolute sweetheart in real life, and he was also our voice director on season 3 and season 4. I don't know if a lot of people know that, and a voice director on a bunch of other projects that Mainframe / Rainmaker did. So no, he's not. The rest of the cast are all wonderful off camera, although there is the famous incident of Mike Beignet annoying Ian Pearson so much that we shot him into the web and weren't going to bring him back. But then we did, so you know, all is well. So no, they're all lovely people. They are really nice people. And as some of you may find out if you come to the convention in June, because a lot of the voice actors are going to be showing up to that.
Yeah, there's if you've got nothing to do on, well, no, you shouldn't plan for this. We've got Anime Evolution in Vancouver, and at the top of my head, I can't think of the dates, but it's at the brand new Vancouver Convention Center.
14th, 13th, 14th.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's the
and
middle week.
Got Gavin, of course, and Gavin has helped arrange some of the voice actors from ReBoot, including
Mike Donovan, Gary Chalk, Sharon Alexander,
That's all that's confirmed.
That's all that's
so far.
confirmed. Yes,
That's-
I've spoken to some of the others too.
That's
and
Andrea, that's Slash, that's Turbo,
yeah.
that's Michael
Oh,
TV.
Scott McNeil.
Yes, Scott McNeil for me there.
Scott
Scott's there because of
McNeil.
DMF, right?
I don't know if Scott
not
McNeil.
checked?
You
Have
know
you
what?
not checked on that?
Scott McNeil's one of those funny guys where he's really popular amongst the anime fandom, and he might not even be announced, but he could just show up anyways.
That's
right?
Scott, yes.
He
Scott
does that a lot, so.
But anyway, no, the voice actors are lovely people. Yes. Anyone else? Next question.
Yeah. Next question? Sure. Are you ever worried about lawsuits because of the homage to the games?
The whole homage thing is a very fine line. And you find that, I mean, a lot of people, satire, you get away with it once, usually. Depends who it is. But you usually get away with it once. If you do it more than once, you're pushing your luck. If you do it 4 times, like that bloody penguin kept showing up in the show, that gets very dangerous, because it's gone beyond a joke. To coin a phrase, it's gone beyond a joke, and it's like, no, you're really pushing it now. Now you're just going to annoy people, and they're going to say you are using our character, so stop it. And the penguin was a great example. I don't know if any of you, if you all know this, but the penguin from Wallace and Gromit showed up in ReBoot, and it was funny because it was the scene that we put him in was sort of a homage to The Wrong Trousers. And then later on he showed up again, just walking down the street or something like that. And that was funny too. And then it was like the animators used to find him in the can. The models used to live in what we called the can, which was a file, a disk partition where all the models lived. And the animators would find him and go, oh, I'm going to put the penguin in my scene. And he'd show, and the director of whatever show it was, he'd show up in the scene, and the director would laugh and go, oh yeah, that's funny, we'll leave it in. And sometimes, like myself or Phil or Ian, wouldn't see it until the show was finished. And we'd spot it and go, what the hell is the penguin doing there? And sometimes
digitized it out.
Exactly, and sometimes we could like get it yanked out, other times we couldn't. And that one, Ian actually got pretty mad about the penguin kept showing up. Eventually he ordered the penguin to be deleted from the system so that he couldn't show up again, because we were... No, well no. I know Lennox had a penguin as a mascot,
yeah, but it looks identical.
The penguin in ReBoot was the Wallace and Gromit penguin. It was
that flickering eye thing, eh?
Feathers McGraw was.
Okay, let's do the girl in the green.
I know you know obviously season 4 got cut short. I'm not wondering, could you speak on the story arcs you plan to do, or that you want to finish that you sort of got finished, you never got around to?
Okay, yeah. Did you all hear that one? Yeah, season 4 got cut short, did we? Yes, we did. I mean, season 4 we planned. I mean, if you want to go all the way back to when we were talking about doing a 4th season, we did actually plan it to be like season 3, 4 sets of 4 episodes, and that was our dream. And then the deal sort of solidified a bit more, and it looked like we were going to get to do 12 episodes. So we kind of planned for 12 episodes in 4 episode arcs. So yeah, we had this big overarching story that went over everything. And then we got cut back to 8 episodes. And we found ourselves in the position where we had to sort of, okay, you know, we have this much story, this much space, we have to cram it in. And a lot of things hit the cutting room floor, a lot of things just never got done. There were scenes with, I was telling somebody today, there were scenes with the web surfer and mouse in the web that we just, this scene isn't important, we have to get rid of it. And the cliffhanger, we never intended there to be a cliffhanger at the end of season 4, I'm sorry. It was just that we got to that part of the script, and it was like, okay, we're already at 22 pages and we're only at the end of Act 3. There's no way we can fit this in. So we had to make a call there to do either a very crappy episode that wasn't a cliffhanger, but was just like a blip for it, with like, hello, yes, goodbye, haha, oh, oh, yes, hi, goodbye, no, the hunt, slash, you know, grab, and it's the end. Or we did an episode with a cliffhanger that was a pretty good episode, which is what I think we did, or what we tried to do. So yes, we did have a whole bunch of things planned that we never got to do.
Okay, then gentlemen, that's...
Speaking of people watching earlier on, which one do you say is your favorite? And what are the other people watching you like to do?
Oh,
games.
Game homages. Which homages was my favourite, and which other homages? As for which other ones we'd like to do, I mean, the homages came from what we were into at the time and what was big in the popular culture at the time. So, you know, the homages we would have done 3 years ago are probably not the ones we would have done now. We would have picked on different things now.
How about on the spot? What would you do now? Like a game right now.
Oh boy.
Sorry, yeah.
That's,
think about that and come back to us.
I'll come back to that one. I'll think about that one. My favourite, Mad Max. I had to work my way through the episodes there. Yeah, Bad Bob. I love Bad Bob.
Oh yeah.
I love it wasn't in a game, but I love the Thunderbirds stuff, which I love that. And from season 4, I love the whole Pikachu thing. Because of I mean, we did all that stuff with the shader, and we came up with a whole new look for it, things like that, which was a lot of fun. And the monsters like Slugiria and Bujimon and things like that was very fun.
And that shader technology we would use afterwards on the Spider-Man series.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. We were always we developed things on ReBoot, which was our flagship show, and then developed things to use on other shows. Yeah. CBC.
You guys find that a lot of
Say that again?
Yeah, can you?
Did you guys invent a lot of technology for CG animation from the art?
Yes, we were always, I mean, in the beginning, everything was from scratch. I mean, the software we were using was off the shelf, but we had to build every model and make every model work. We had to work out how the characters talked, and we actually wrote a program in-house to do the lip sync, which we called Grid. And then for each season we did, and every show we did, not just ReBoot but the other shows, we were always pushing the technological envelope to try and make each show better and better. I mean, if you watch ReBoot, the early shows, there are no shadows, and then suddenly there are shadows. There are no reflections, then there are reflections. We're always pushing it. Yeah.
I believe you guys switched renderers between 3 and 4. Or season 3 had Mental Ray, and prior to that it was all Softimage.
Softimage with the Mental Ray, and then
Ray Tracer, all that.
what did we do for season 4?
Same. Mental Ray, yeah.
I thought I just got the date on the Switch.
You got the yellow? What was the original inspiration for creating ReBoot?
Apologies to the people I've told this story to today. It's funny, in the beginning, when we had the idea to do a CGI show, this was, I'm talking the mid-80s, so CGI was very primitive and very crude and very simple back then. I don't know if any of you have seen the Dire Straits Money for Nothing
Oh yeah.
video. That was where CGI was in the mid-80s. And that was what ReBoot was going to look like when we first created it. It was going to be boxy and flat shaded and no shiny and no shadows, definitely no shadows. And it was a lot of people who we pitched it to, you know, that we had this idea of doing a TV show in CGI, said it's going to look really out there, it's going to look completely different. What's your explanation for that? Because you show that to a network and they're going to go, why does it look so weird? So our explanation became, well, if the show is set inside a computer, that explains why it looks like that. why it's so simple and why, you know, there are gaps. You know, arms don't necessarily attach to, but there are gaps, and the head just floats.
No mouth.
You know.
By mouth.
So the reason it was set inside the computer came from the fact it was done in CGI. Now, fast forward 9 years of development. We developed the show over 9 years. After the 9 years were up, it didn't look like that anymore. It looked like it looked when we made it. And you could have argued, well, now it doesn't have to be set inside a computer because the humans look human. So, but you know, we figured, well, it's a pretty good idea anyway, so we'll just stay with it. You know. Spider-Man.
I was at a series that
Yeah.
when you're still working with like whatever jokes where they go, what's that? Like that.
Oh, did any of our Canadian humour confuse the American broadcaster? I gotta say, it confused standards and practices sometimes. In the most bizarre ways possible. Like, for example, you know, there was this woman from Standards and Practices who, I gotta say, was a lovely woman. She was a really nice woman, but she was, you know, I'm doing my job. This is what I get paid to do, sort of thing. Her name was Mary Conley, which is where MSc in Talent Night comes from, MC. And she used to, we'd write something in the script about hockey. We'd write about hockey, because we always wanted to, we never did it. We never got a hockey game into ReBoot for want of trying. We kept trying.
There's a render out there, but there's no actual frames. Like that one.
Yeah, no, but that's a birthday card.
Oh, what?
That's somebody's birthday. One of the guys who worked at Mainframe, it was his birthday, and he was our best hockey player. So we did that as a birthday card to him. That's what that is, and it's in the book. It's in The Art of ReBoot,
yes,
which you should pick up. From
wondering what that was all about.
Yeah, or a mug. What was I saying? So, and then we'd say like hockey puck, and she'd say you can't use the word hockey puck, and we're like, why not? And apparently,
Four-letter word.
There are no children here, are there? No. Okay. Apparently, hockey puck. I don't know if this is true, but she thought it was. Is slang for a mixture of feces and semen. And we're all like, are you serious? Oh yes, you can't say hockey puck. Okay, we won't say it. And things like that used to baffle the hell out of me.
The kiss on the forehead.
And then at the kid, well, but that's not Canadian humour, is it? That's just yeah, so occasionally, no, not really. The YTV robots, but that wasn't really Canadian humour. That was just a Canadian network reference. But no, not really. Only Standards and Practices.
Toque, yeah. Toque.
Toque, oh the Toque. I mean, but I guess they didn't object to that because there's a binom in the show who wears a toque with Toque written on it. And, which, I don't know if you know this, but Toque was actually a punk rock band in Vancouver. And two of the guys who worked for us played for them. They were in the band, and they, as a promotional thing, they made toques with Toque written on them, and they gave them to everybody. So we're all wearing toques in the winter, and we put one on a vinyl, and we put him in the show. So that's where that comes from. I don't know if you knew that.
Relay that question to us.
Have they what?
Have any of the American companies ever used your programming?
Oh, have they ever homaged us?
That we created, yeah.
No, not that I know of.
No, they
There's a few things where, you know, I'll see something in a show. Somebody mentioned something to me today and said, was that a homage to you? And it's like, I don't think so, but you never know. Because, I mean, in the same way that we were influenced by the shows that came before us, maybe there are people out there who have been influenced by us who are now putting things in their shows.
And a lot of the reboot, people who worked on reboot, they've gone on to work for Pixar and DreamWorks
Yes,
and all
that's
that
true.
stuff.
Yeah, a lot of my children have gone out into the world and yeah, now working for these big companies. Yes, go on.
Atoya37 wanted to know, what content did you have planned for Reboot, and are there any more pics out there like the infamous one with Princess Leia here? Princess Dot?
Yeah, that was some of these pictures. I'll hold this up, which is Dot. This is a sort of homage to Boris, I guess, with Bob as the hero and Dot as the slinky babe in front of him. A lot of these pictures, we were. I don't know if you've heard of a magazine called Femme Fatale.
Yeah.
It's a magazine from the guys who do Cine Fantastique, which is like a homage to all the babes in genre movies and television. And they actually approached us at one point about doing a spread in taking the girls of Reboot and putting them in Femme Fatale magazine. And I was all over that one. But it never happened, it fell through. But we did produce a bunch of stills like this one, which maybe would have been used in the article if it had happened. I think there's a shot of Dot in like workout gear with a couple of weights looking in a mirror. I saw that somewhere online, which was one of the ones done for that. But and like shots of her above and things like that. Yeah, but what was the second part of the question?
Oh, what content did you have planned for it that never made it into the show, either cut by ABC with their brutal BS&P standards, or...
Oh, right. No, anything specific? Can I think of anything specific? That
anything funny, like...
It's funny, the funniest story about that was told by Dan in New York, and I'd forgotten about it, but it's absolutely true. By the time we got to season 2, we had a list a mile long of things that BS&P objected to. And we took all of them, or as many of them as we could, and we put them in Bad Bob. And we sent it to the Standards and Practices lady at ABC, and she sent a letter back saying, show rejected. And Ian got on the phone and said, look, I'm sorry, I thought we were doing this for you. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, all those things you tell us not to do, we put them in this show as an example of the things you're not supposed to do. We did it for you guys. And the next day got a letter back going, show accepted. So, but I'll see if I can think of any specific examples for later, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. What we used to do when we got notes from ABC, I can't ABC. When we got notes from ABC, when we got notes from Standards and Practices, because they weren't always the same notes. You know, you get notes from the broadcaster, you get notes from the Standards and Practices people. What we would try and do was there'd be the inevitable stomping up and down, shouting and swearing, but then we'd calm down and we'd say, okay, this is what they object to, how can we deal with what they've said and make the story better at the same time? So basically it's almost thank you BS&P for pushing Reboot and making us work harder to come up with better storylines. Because, you know, you wouldn't let us throw something through a window, so instead we did this, and this instead. You know, to avoid throwing through the window, we did all this plot over here. So, again, I can't think of any specific examples, but I'll try.
So considering that you don't really have anything to do with the Revival project,
Yeah.
if you had a choice of how the ending of season 4 would come around, did you have like a decision made on how that season would end?
I know exactly what happens after the hunt
And we're not allowed to know.
beyond, and I'm keeping it to myself because
until they pooch it.
Yeah, because at the moment I'm not involved, but in this business you never say never. And you know, will we ever get to tell that story? Well, you never know. We might. And I'd rather save it because for two reasons. One, because we might get to tell that story one day, and two, because me telling you it is not going to be anywhere near good enough as for what you're anticipating. My telling of the story will in no way be as good as what's in you guys' heads, I think. So it would spoil it, I think, in a way. Yes?
From all the homages that you made in your games and such, have you ever had like the people starring in the original movies you're inspired by come up to you and say, hey, I saw you homage to this, and I thought it was awesome, or anything?
I spoke to Bruce Campbell once.
Awesome!
And I asked him, you know, did he see it? Unfortunately, no, he didn't. And I was gutted by that. I was like, oh, I really wanted him to either punch me in the face or say, you guys rock, or something. But no, that never happened. But Gillian, I mean, obviously Gillian Anderson, but that was the wrong way round because we wrote the part. She approached us and said she wanted to be in the show. She'd loved, because she was in Vancouver doing the X-Files, and she loved the show. And she came for a tour of the studio. And of course we sort of said, you know, would you ever consider maybe appearing in the show? And she's like, oh, I'd love to. So we immediately said, okay, we have to do an X-Files parody. We have to get Mulder and Scully in Mainframe somehow.
Why weren't you able to get David Duchovny in?
He didn't want to do it. Yeah, exactly. He was a miserable bastard.
He would have had to go back to Vancouver for that.
Well, no, but they were still in Vancouver at the time. He just, honestly, because Gillian was like all over it. She was totally up for it, and she's a sweetheart. She really is a lovely, lovely person. And we said, you know, what about David? Would he be interested? And I can't remember whether she asked him, or we asked his agent, or we contacted him somehow. But basically, we got the answer back saying, no, I'm not interested. So, which is why we got Scott McNeil, I think it was Scott McNeil, to do such a cruel parody of David Duchovny's character in the show. Yeah, we did that on purpose. Yes, hello. You, sorry, yes.
Okay. After season 2, when there was that big sort of 3-year gap,
Yeah.
after season 3, was it hard to reassemble the voice talent and also the creative team to
No, it's never hard to reassemble voice talent because actors love working. So it's never difficult to get it's like, hey, Mike, are you busy or would you like to do some more reboot? Oh yeah, I'll be there tomorrow. Yeah. No, it's never hard to reassemble voice talent. But they're lovely people. Bless them. What was the second part of the question? Well, I mean, you got to remember at the time, like myself, Ian, Phil, the 3 creators, you know, we worked at Mainframe. So it's not like we'd gone anywhere, we were still there. So, and Dan, in fact, Dan DiDio at that point now played a bigger role in the show. He was our liaison at ABC during season 1 and 2. But for season 3, he actually worked for Mainframe. You know, we brought him on board and he was working at Mainframe. So in a way, it was the opposite of hard. It was really easy, actually, to get back into it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take it. Years and years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Mary Weldon.
Oh, yeah.
But who talked a little bit about the original French movie and the way they pictured. They said originally season 2 was actually even darker than it turned out to be. Like they were telling me, okay, seasons from more intense and all of the degrees of the red.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
I just wonder, like, and listen, she said this was the other back we loved this show.
Yeah, I think what it was, and I don't know how much of it was conscious and how much of it was just incidental, but it just happened. But we'd been axed by ABC, right? You know, the treacherous dogs. Had axed us, so we were really annoyed about that. And you know, we'd been on ABC for 2 seasons, and we'd kowtowed to their standards and practices and things like this. We'd put up with their crap for 2 years, and it was kind of like, what's the word where it goes the other way? A backlash to that. When we conceived season 3, it's like, okay, you know, now we're in charge and we're doing it for us, and it's going to be dark and gritty and grown up. So we kind of went way over here. You know, we were over here on ABC, and now we had control. We went way over here. But during the course of developing it and creating it and writing it, it kind of came, you know, we pulled it back. We didn't go as dark. A lot of that was down to Dan. Dan, like, talking Ian down and saying, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. And you've got to give him, Matrix can't be that miserable. He has to, you know. And a lot of it, I don't know how many of you are in the panel I was just talking about character. Characters, sometimes you start writing something and you've got a plan ahead of you. And you start writing it and the characters start talking to you, you know, delivering the lines in the scenes. And they start pulling you in different directions. And it's like, that's because that's what Bob would do. That's what Dot would do. You know, Andrea wouldn't say that. Andrea wouldn't do that. She'd do this. And the story you've planned out starts to warp and change and metamorphosize as you go through it. And it softened itself. Because a great example is Matrix and his dark, brooding nature. We did, when we created him, he was Snake Plissken. I don't know if you know Snake Plissken from Escape from New York. He was bitter and dark and miserable and grim and growled at everybody. And then we went, hang on a minute though. When he got lost in the games, it was him, Frisket and Andrea. And if Andrea's still with him, there is no way he would be that dark and grim and miserable, because she wouldn't let him. So that was an example of the characters and the story pulling it in another direction that you hadn't envisaged when you came up with it to begin with. It's like, no, if Andrea and Enzo had grown up together, there is no way. He might act rough, and he might be buff and tough and miserable with this scar and everything, but there's no way he's going to be Snake Plissken. He's going to be Matrix. He's going to be what he ended up being. You know, with the whole being mean to the binomes, and then behind the scenes he's playing with the yo-yo going, so how many did we get? Yeah. And it's like, you're just not that good an actor, Matrix. And, oh, okay. You know, so the characters did that. We planned something and the characters pulled it in a different direction. Yes?
What happened after season 4? How did the casting of Tony Jay and that character make by the main people in general?
Well, I mean, I was gone from the company at the time. I know it affected me very deeply. I shed a tear over that one. Because Tony was a lovely, lovely guy. I mean, he was a really nice guy. We met him a few times. He came to visit us in Vancouver. We went out for dinner with him, and he was an absolute gentleman, is the only word, with a capital G. A wonderful guy. And I don't know, I pity them, actually. I don't envy them having the job of, if they do carry on with the show, replacing Tony Jay. You can't replace Tony Jay, so I don't know what they're going to do.
In season 4, just one plot hole we seem to notice at the beginning of the...
Plot hole?
Yeah. they at the beginning scene there, they got the web screen showing Andrea, Matrix, Capacitor, and Ray. And Ray and Capacitor have X's through their pictures. And I was just curious, did we actually have a story, defining what happened to those two? Because Ray randomly shows up. He actually, Baldry had no spoken lines in both movies, but
he shows up at the end of season 4.
But he never does speak, actually.
I think what we said was, look, I mean, ReBoot has a huge cast of characters. It's a big ensemble cast. And we were telling a very complicated story. And as I said earlier, we were telling this much story, and now we had this much time. So a lot of things got thrown aside. We would have seen the pirates. Oh, okay. We would have seen Web Surfer, and he would have had lines of dialogue. But we just had to cut it down so much that what we said was, look, in Damon Rising, let's just assume that Ray and Capacitor have been infected. Oh, okay. And they're out there somewhere, and they've heard the word, and they're on the other side, and we just don't see them. And then at the end, when the infection goes away, Ray is cured and finds Bob and brings him back to mainframe. So, does that answer your question?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just a bit weird because, you know, with the way that they spoke the lines, it made it sort of seem, you know, is it true whether or not Ray was infected or not? Because it was never clear, you know, because Turbo was saying it.
Yeah,
well, the infection was that a ploy to trick Mouse
there's
or what?
the dialogue scene where Turbo is having a go at Mouse, isn't he, and saying, you know, Ray's heard the word too, and it's like, is he lying?
Yes, and the extremely thorough search, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we put the pictures thing in there basically to say that the mainframers didn't know whether they were or not.
No.
And it doesn't really matter whether Turbo knew or not.
Yeah.
Because the effect of the scene was exactly the same.
Oh, yeah.
You know, whether he knew, whether it was true, whether they were infected, weren't infected, the scene was still the same, and it still had the same effect on Mouse.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter. When you're doing a show like this, you only answer as many questions as you need to answer to tell the story. You don't spend your time, waste your time basically, answering a bunch of questions that you don't really need. You answer the ones you need to know to move forward. And then when you hit another question, you answer it and you move forward some more. And it's like, where's Ray and the cat and the pirates? They're out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Do we need to know where they are? No. Okay. So we won't even worry about it. No. Are they infected? Maybe. Don't know. Doesn't matter. Move on.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
So that's how these things get in there. And it's like, I don't know whether they were infected or not. I'm assuming they were, but that's just me. But it didn't change the story whether they were or not.
Yeah.
The scene was the same. Yes?
With ReBoot having such a big fandom, have you ever taken a look at their fan art and fan fictions they made? And if so, were there any that made you go, oh, ugly?
I've never had a bad reaction to... I mean, I think it's wonderful that we have you guys. Even now, after all these years, I think it's great, and I love what you guys, the passion that you guys have for the show, and the creativity it brings out in you all. And yeah, I have looked at fan art, and I never used to. We used to avoid, actually, when I was at Mainframe, we used to actively avoid reading fan fiction, because you never know. You might read something in a fanfic that, oh God, we were just going to put that in the show. And it might not be a problem, but then again, you might put it in the show, and then the person who wrote that fanfic goes, "Hey, is that my art? You took my art. Can I have credit for my art?" And it's just a can of worms that you don't want to. So we used to somebody talked about Mary Wellman earlier. She was our watchdog, and she used to make sure that we didn't go reading fan fiction. And if somebody sent us an unsolicited script, she used to make sure that we didn't get to see it. She protected us from that stuff.
Is it true that in one episode, Bad Bob, that in the binary code in a banner around the city, you guys had something to the censorship board because they hated the episode?
No. It wasn't Bad Bob. It was actually every city scene in the show. In the early days, when we were, the pre-production period on ReBoot was like 9 months or something in 93, 94. So we were writing scripts, we were building models, we were designing sets, building sets, yada, 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 doing all that. So a lot of scripts were being written, and we were already getting notes from BS&P. Like in The Quick and the Fed, where they're knights in armor, there's a scene where Doc gets knocked on her ass, basically. Pardon my French. She gets knocked on her butt. There has to be a cushion for her to land on. I swear that's the kind of note we were getting from BS&P in the early days. They learned fast to not bother with notes like that. But what we did as a FU to standards of practice, we actually, in all the, you create textures for your buildings, which you wrap around and you repeat and all this kind of thing. In binary, in a texture block, we got one of the specky guys to spell out FU, standards and practices. And then we took that texture and wrapped it around lots of buildings in Mainframe. Now, I think it would be impossible. In fact, Ian made the specky guy swear that it would be impossible for anybody to ever get a shot of a building clear enough to unwrap the texture and decode the binary and find the words. So I don't think you could, but it's there.
That's for the fans to do.
I know that when the show first came out, you guys had a toy production line and everything. Are you guys ever going to
The toys?
Yeah, all the toys that you made. I know Pizza Hut carried them for a while.
Well, I mean, that's toy. You do deals. A company does a deal with a toy company, and the toy company make the toys, and they own the molds. And what they often do is they make the run of toys, then they destroy the molds, and blah blah blah. So to retool and remake toys again is a huge cost. And the toy company went bust, didn't it?
Yeah, they actually got bought out in 2001, and actually all the
Well, they're back now, are they? Good.
all of them
Just
were
good
destroyed.
guys.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But
Irwin-
so
Irwin is back.
no,
He'll be back in a while.
it would take, you know, Rainmaker, who are the rights holders, would have to approach Irwin. Are they Irwin again? They would have to approach Irwin and do a deal, and you know. And the thing about toys is there are 3 legs to that stool. There's a buyer too. There's the production company, there's the toy company, and there's Mr. Toys R Us or Mr. Walmart, who buys toys on the back of advertising, on the back of a sale to a network. So there's a whole bunch of dominoes, big expensive dominoes, that have to be lined up in order for a toy line to exist at all, let alone be relaunched. So it's chances are slim to none at this point.
Were to create the toys and sell them out, would you guys have issues with that, or?
Well, I wouldn't, because I don't own the rights to the show anymore. But Rainmaker might, yes. That's something for them.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just going to ask, actually. No, I forgot my question. Go to the next person.
All right.
Alright, I was just wondering, with characters with names like Dominatrix, Enzomatrix, Spawn, Cat Flash, how come Bob's name is Bob?
Because we wanted our hero to just have a simple, one-syllable, everyman kind of name. Not a clever, quirky, silly name. We just wanted a sorry? What?
Never met anyone named Bob.
But it was just, just the guy Bob.
It was just Bob. You know, we just wanted him to be a regular guy. Like, you watch a lot of TV these days, and just about every hero is called Jack, which I love. Like, there's Stargate and 24, things like that. The hero, the everyman hero at the moment is Jack. We wanted an everyman hero too, so we went for Bob because of Blackadder. Some of you may know this story. The second season of Blackadder was big at the time that we were creating the characters. And there's a scene in the first episode of season 2 where the girl dresses herself as a boy and comes to Blackadder to get a job as his manservant. And she calls herself Bob. And Rowan Atkinson, there's this big scene, all these scenes where Rowan Atkinson just sort of goes, "So, Bob." And he does it in that very Rowan Atkinson kind of way. And it just cracked us up. We just thought it was very funny. And it was a simple, palindromic name that, Bob, everyman, hero Bob. Yeah. So that's why we picked a simple name for our hero.
Speaking of the binary movie, in the episode where it's Enzo's birthday and it has the joke,
Yes.
is there actually a joke there?
Yes, there is. Can anybody tell me what that joke is? Not you. You know. I know you know. Yeah. Take my wife, please. Is what that decodes as in binary. Yes. Take my wife, please. So yes, the binary joke. Yes, sir.
You were talking about that when you first started off, like you used like software, CGI stuff.
Yeah.
When when you got to where you are now, the product that you ended up with, is that now a licensed product? Do you license it to other?
Oh, Grin. No, as far as I know, Grin, which is the software we wrote in-house to do the lip sync, I believe is...
Jason Nociva sold it in a book.
Did he?
Well, it's called Making Faces. It's very popular.
Yes, he did. He did a book out of it.
The product itself was not something.
No, I don't think we ever. I don't think Mainframe certainly never sold it, and I don't think Rainmaker sold it either. But the software that was used to do the animation was an off-the-shelf package. Yeah.
The other thing is, with the CGI, do you find that, like, the fact that you're able to use that's giving you more time to focus on writing, and like you said,
Yes,
when
I mean,
it starts to define what
yes, in the first season, we were basically just trying to get the shows out the door. by any means necessary. We were under tight deadlines. We ran behind, which is why ABC did that thing with the Medusa bug, where the bug kept coming back, and to buy us the Trias effect, bought us a few weeks, because we were 24/7. I'd animate a scene and then slide under the desk for a nap, and then get up and animate the next scene. It's like we were in the building all the time, 7 days a week, just trying to get the shows out the door. But once we'd done that, once we had all our models and all our sets and all that, we'd worked out the lip sync and everything, then it was like, okay, now we can take a breath and work on, production, making it look better and making it sound better and making the scripts better. Because, in the early days we were getting scripts from Hollywood scriptwriters that were 52 pages long, and we didn't have time to edit them, so we'd record the whole thing, edit it in the Avid, make it work. But then when we had time and we could take a breath and we'd had a few nights sleep, we could say, okay, now when you send us a script, we've actually got time to read it and criticize it and send it back and get you to fix it, or we'll fix it for you. So yeah, once we got past season 1, we had breathing room to get more creative with the storylines and things. Yes?
So I'm not sure if this was answered earlier, it was, kind of hard to hear.
Yeah.
But given that, geek culture has been around forever, but given that computers were only really starting to get really popular toward the late 90s, how did you get the inspiration for the series when it takes place in an actual computer?
Right, that was, I mentioned earlier Dire Straits' Money for Nothing, the pop promo, which you may have heard of, you might be familiar to you. That Ian Pearson, who's one of the other creators, and I did that pop promo. So we were working in London, in England, not London, Derek. We were working in London, England, at the time in a facilities house doing CGI for commercials and like tumbling logos, like tonight on Fox kind of thing. We were doing all that kind of stuff for a living. And we were friends, Ian was friends with Steve Barron, who's you might have heard of. He's a video pop promo director. He directed a lot of famous pop promos. And we were bugging him to do a pop promo with CGI. And eventually he came to us with a project. It was Dire Straits. We did it, Money for Nothing, 3.5 weeks of hell. Got the promo done, made headlines all over the world, first promo ever played on MTV Europe, etc., etc. And it was doing that made Ian actually go, hey, we could do a TV show like this. We could do a cartoon like this. Now we've done a pop promo, now we could do a TV show.
What I mean more like, less about like the graphical aspect of it is, how do you come up with the idea for that world that ReBoot took place in?
All right, you obviously didn't hear, because
no, actually, if it has been answered, then by all means find another question, because I don't want to answer.
Okay, you can watch his tape later.
Yeah, I'm going to be uploading it online several sites. I can get some URLs afterwards.
No, you've been, yes, green shirt, yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. I wondered if since I was told, I'm just going to go ahead and ask this.
Just ask.
I haven't gotten Enzo's mom. It's been bothering me.
Oh, Enzo's mom, yeah. What happened to Enzo's mom? Or?
They mentioned their dad casually in the first 2 seasons, then you see both of them come back.
Well, that's the kind of thing where I was saying to that gentleman over there, once you've got over the episodic, I have a problem, game comes in, we learn something, game goes away, everything's back to normal. Once you've got past those episodes and you start having fun with the creativity and the plot lines and getting more complicated, then you start throwing in those little crumbs like, oh, things haven't been the same since Dad killed everybody. And you guys all go, what did he just say? And when he said that, we hadn't thought it all the way through yet. It was just, we're going to do something with that later, and we'll just throw it in there. I can't remember what we did that a lot. We'd throw in the little crumbs of, what did that guy just say? And we always...
Big crumb.
That's a big crumb. That one was a very big crumb.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously led to the whole events in Demon Rising and stuff like that.
That and Megabyte with holding nibbles and calling him father.
Father, exactly. That's the one. That's one of my favourites. That sort of, there you are, father. It's like, what? What the hell does that mean? So we we'd throw in those crumbs and then we'd think about it. Dot's mum, Dot and Enzo's mum, I think what happened was, I think it was between season 2 and season 3, there was, as somebody pointed out, like a 4-year, 4-year gap. Yeah. Ian, Phil and I went away for a week to a place on Vancouver Island, and we wrote a movie. Well, we wrote the outline of a movie, a reboot movie, because at that point in time it looked like we wouldn't be doing season 3, we'd be doing a movie. So we wrote the outline of a movie, much of which ended up in Damon Rising. It basically evolved over the years into Damon Rising. But that gave us a bunch of ideas, like the thing about Dot's dad, that we then started throwing into season 3 and season 2, late season 2. And we always thought, sorry, I'm long-winded way of getting to it, but we always thought we'd deal with, eventually we would deal with their mum. We just never got there. We just ran out of time, you know. It all went the way it went, and I left Mainframe, and Ian left Mainframe, Phil left Mainframe. We never got to tell that story. So we always had in the back of our minds that, you know, one of these days we're going to have to tell the fans what's the deal with Mum. But we just never got there. Sorry. No, because as I was saying, no, but as I was saying to you earlier, you know, you only answer the questions you need to answer when you need to answer. So we knew that we'd deal with Dot's mum, but we didn't. And no, I can't tell you what the deal is with the mum, because we never answered that question yet, you see.
So other than using your favorite dancer there as a model for Andrea, who else did you use for modeling in that case, or was it just rough-eyed, like for most of the characters?
The question, seeing as how we got the music back, you may know that we used an exotic dancer as the body model for Andrea. Big Andrea, not little Andrea, big Andrea. That would be kind of weird. But and did we use body models for anybody else? No. We use references like I clearly remember to this day when I built a lot of the female bodies on ReBoot. Don't know why. And the first model I built on ReBoot was Dot. I built the brown uniform Dot Matrix with one boob because we weren't allowed to give her 2 boobs at that point. And you know, I had references, and one of my biggest references for her was Kira Nerys on Deep Space Nine. I don't know if you look at the early seasons of Deep Space Nine, there are real similarities between, possibly too many similarities between her and Dot. But no, we'd gather reference, like, you know, she's a bit this and a bit that, with a bit of this thrown in, and oh, I like, look, this comic book artist has just done this character, isn't it cool? I like the way he's done the legs, maybe we could use that on something. So, you know, it was they were all mishmash. And it was when we got the chance to do Big Andrea that we went, you know, hey, we got the chance to use a stripper for this. You know? So we did.
Okay, one last question.
Yeah. Yeah.
If Rainmaker owns the rights to ReBoot right now, they would assume that they simply taxpayers process
my approval, no. Rainmaker own the rights to ReBoot. They can do anything with it they want, and I can be mad about it or happy about it, but I can't do anything about it, no.
Okay, so I want to thank everyone for coming out. We're still here tomorrow.
Yeah, we're here all day.
If there's anybody who needs Gavin to sign anything before they leave, I brought some markers.
Oh, you brought? Okay.
Yeah.